Hey, in this video, we're going to cover one of the things that people really don't understand, and that is how are credit card balances reported and when. Now, if you're somebody who's had an experience where maybe you're monitoring your credit and you get an alert that your credit score is dropped by 15, 20, 30, 40, or 50 points, this video is going to explain exactly why that happens, and it's going to show you exactly what you can do to prevent that from happening. And if you stick around toward the end of the video, I'm going to give you 2 secret hacks with 2 major credit card companies that will allow you to quickly get your credit card balance to update with the credit bureaus. Hey, what's going on? If you're new to this channel, my name is Peter, and in this channel we talk about personal finance, things related to credit and credit cards. And at the end of every video, I give my take on it, where basically I give you my opinion about the topic we just spoke about. When it comes to credit cards, here's one of the things that you may want to do is actually grab your credit card statement. Every single credit card company is a little bit different with how they design their statements. Now, every single credit card has what's called a billing cycle start date and an end date. Now, this is completely separate and different than the date that you're used to, which is the due date. So let's take a look at this. So when it comes to the billing cycle start date and end date, the credit bureaus receive a balance update from every credit card once a month. And it's always whatever the balance is at the end of the billing cycle end date. So what that means is that typically there is an organic process that happens once a month. Now, what you have to think about is this. There are approximately 590 million active credit card accounts, which means every single day of the month, there is a data exchange where credit card companies are sending the data to the credit bureaus, which is what is your balance, what was the payment that you've made, have you paid on time, and things of that nature. This is a large data set and data transfer that's happening. This is a lot of data that's being sent every single day. So what you need to understand is locate your billing cycle end date. And this statement right here that I brought up, you can take a look, you'll scroll down, you'll see the opening date was on December 24th. You'll also see that the closing date was January 23rd. That means whatever the balance was on January 23rd is what is going to get sent to the credit bureaus. Now, if you're somebody who is not looking to get into a major transaction, such as applying for a new credit card, or purchasing a vehicle, or leasing a vehicle, or doing a refinance, or purchasing real estate where you will need a mortgage, then it doesn't really matter to pay attention to this, because your score is going to fluctuate. As long as no one is looking at your score, doesn't really matter. But if you are, here's where you're going to be able to take control of approximately 165 points. Now, what this means is your credit utilization accounts for 30% of your credit score, which there's an available amount of 550 points. You start at 300 and it can go up to as far as 850. That 550 points, 30% of that is 165 points, which means you can technically have a 750 credit score, but if you're maxed out on your credit cards and you have really high utilization, it can drop it to about 600. Now, what's crazy is the amount of an impact that this can have for you, from getting approved for a credit card or getting denied to get a credit limit increase or even applying for a mortgage. It's a night and day difference when you swing up 150 plus points. So why you want to pay attention to this is if you are wanting to purchase a home or a vehicle, then you're going to want to take a look at your credit card statements and identify what are the billing cycle end dates. And if you want to position your credit to have the highest possible credit score, you're going to want to use AZEO, which is all zero except one, which means you're going to want to have a zero balance on all your credit cards, which you will have to make a payment 24 hours before the billing cycle end date, because it takes 24 hours for any kind of a payment to post. So in a perfect world, you are paying out your credit card in full 24 hours before the billing cycle end date. And what ends up happening is balance that gets reported to the credit bureaus will be a zero balance. And as long as you do that for all your cards consistently and every month, you're going to see your credit score always stay sky high. You'll never get an alert that says, hey, your credit score dropped by 20 points, 30 points. The most common reason why you get any kind of a score alert and you have those fluctuations fluctuations, typically it's a decrease, is because of what your credit card balance was reported by your creditor that month. Now, if you typically use your card, if you take a look at this card, it had previous balance of $8,844. The limit is $16,500. Now, when they calculate your credit score, they're going to take your balance and they're going to divide it by the limit. That's your utilization percentage. You can tell here, because you're paying during the due date, it's going to report that $8,000 balance versus that $16,000 limit. That's over 50% utilization. That's considered kind of high. But if you look at this month moving forward, if we pass the 23rd and make the payment on the 27th, and if the balance is $15,500, then it's going to show that I'm almost at 100% utilization. I've got a balance of $15,589 on a card that has a $16,500 limit. So it's reporting this high balance, even though the account is on auto pay, and it's going to pay it off in full by the due date. So what you're doing here is basically reporting an incredibly high utilization. So this is what you want to pay attention to for every one of your credit cards. Now, here's where it can get really tricky. If you're somebody who has limited credit, you only have one credit card with like a $500 limit. And if you can think of a $500 limit card, it's not hard to max that card out. This is something that can drop your score by over 100 points if you have a balance that, let's say, reported at like $495. So this is what you want to pay attention to. Again, when it matters is when you're wanting to purchase. You want to keep your score as high as possible. That's when it's going to have a significant impact. Now let's talk about a couple other things. You have your due date. Your payment is due on the due date. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is when can you be reported late? If you miss the due date, you will incur a late payment fee, but it's not that difficult to call and get that late payment fee waived as long as you've made your payment. Now, when it comes to damaging your credit, payment history accounts for 35% of your credit score, which is even more than your utilization. But you cannot be reported late onto your credit report unless you are over 30 days late on a payment, which means on this card, if the due date was February 17th, if you make the payment after March 17th, then and only then can they report you late. You have a 30-day window and a 30-day cushion that you can actually make a late payment on all of your credit cards. You can be 29 days late on all of your cards. Make the payments, call them up, get the late payment fees waived, and you will not damage your credit. So please understand that. Now, when they look at your credit scores, the utilization is 30% of your score. As I mentioned before, they're going to look at two things. One, each credit card that you have individually. What is the balance? What is the limit? So it's doing a simple calculation of your utilization individually on every single card, and then cumulatively, which means they're going to take all your cards, all your limits, all your balances, and come up with a cumulative utilization. The best way to position this to give you the highest possible credit score is to have every card at zero except one. The one card that you have a balance, ideally have a very small balance, anywhere from 1 to 3% of the limit. This will give you the highest possible credit score. Here's something that people aren't really aware of. If you really go to zero on all of the cards, it'll actually drop the score more than if you had a little bit of a balance. Another thing to keep in mind, accounts with balances. Current version of the mortgage FICO score that's currently being used, it does not like having multiple accounts with balances, specifically credit cards. So even if you have very small balances across 8 credit cards, it's going to reflect in your credit score. Now, when does this matter? When you want to get into a transaction. Now, if you're somebody who isn't going to get into a transaction, do you need to grab your statements and look at your billing cycle end date and pay that payment? Not necessarily. Because if your score isn't going to be looked at, then it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you're making your payments on time, which is before the due date, which is typically about 20 to 21 days after the billing cycle end date. Now, what you do want to keep an eye out is a grace period. If you want to use this and be financially savvy, every credit card has a grace period. Typically, it's about 30 days. And what that is you can use the card as much as you want. As long as you pay it in full by the due date, you will not incur any interest expense. Now, this is the most effective way to use credit cards because you're getting a grace period where you're not being charged interest, and you get to avoid paying interest if you're paying it off in full. This is probably the best way to do it. Now, sometimes there's situations where you're not able to do it. I understand that. What you want to avoid is getting maxed out on your credit cards. And one of the things you really do not want to do is ever go over the limit on a credit card. If you go over the limit on the credit card, your credit score is really seriously punished. And now on to the hack of what I told you. So now you realize that you've got credit cards, you've got billing cycle end dates that can range from the beginning of the month, the middle of the month, at any date, any point in the month. So all these times is when this data is getting sent to the credit bureaus. And anytime a new data or a balance is sent to the credit bureau, that's when your credit score can change. Now, the hack that I wanted to give to you guys is if you have an account with Chase is one of the only credit card companies that has this feature, which a lot of people are not aware of, and that is with Chase credit cards, if you pay the account off in full and you keep it at a zero balance for 48 hours, that means if there are any pending charges, you have to make a payment, zero it out, Chase will automatically send an update to the credit bureaus, and it typically is reflected within 2 to 3 business days. Now, what do you need to keep in mind? Every one of these systems, when you have 590 million credit cards and you have data being sent to 3 different credit bureaus, there's actually more credit bureaus, but the primary ones that are going to be looked at when you're in the lending decision are the 3 major ones. Transunion has their own system and their own interface, so does Experian, and so does Equifax. Now, there is a way that you can actually check when was the data reported to your credit bureaus. Now, if you do not already have a free account with Experian, it's something that you're going to want to go ahead and get. I'll have a link for it right below. And another thing, if you guys haven't done this already, subscribe to this channel, hit like, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Dude, it really would mean a lot, especially if you have any questions, because I love answering those kind of questions. But if you subscribe, it'll mean even so much, and hit the notification bell, because we're going to be putting up a lot more videos. Back to Experian. Take a look at this Experian account. It's completely free. Now, they're going to send you a bunch of marketing offers. They're going to show you FICO 8. That's the score only for Experian. That's a generic version of FICO. I did another video that really went in depth on the credit scores. But once you get into the dispute process, so trigger here, you're going to go as if you want to submit a dispute, but you're not going to file a dispute. Now, once you get into the dispute screen, you're looking at your credit in real time. So right now you can take a look, like if you take a look at this credit card right here, you'll see the date reported. With Experian, that's almost always the billing cycle end date. Experian gets their data updates very quickly. So here's a quick way, if you don't have your statements in front of you, or you want to just check, create your account with Experian, go into the dispute, grab your statements, and then take a look at these dates, date reported and your billing cycle end date. And then you're going to be able to see exactly how that works and in real time. And it does not hurt your credit to do this. You can also do the same thing with Transunion. But Transunion gets their updates a little bit slower than Experian. Sometimes it's faster, it really is case by case. But if you go through Transunion, there's a free account you can create. I have a link for it in the bottom. Take a look at Transunion here, and here's the detail where you can see when did the date reported. Those are the billing cycle end dates. Now, this information, incredibly powerful. It allows you to position your credit, give you the highest possible credit score, as opposed to just flying in blind and not understanding how this works. The second hack, now that I've given away the Chase hack, the second hack is with Discover. Now, what Discover can do is whenever you make a payment to Discover, you can call them 24 hours after you made the payment and ask for a manual update. What they'll do there is they can manually send the update of the credit card balance. What you're doing is you're sidestepping that organic process and the automated process. It will send a data upload to the credit bureaus about your payment and about your new balance. It takes about 24 to 48 hours, sometimes 72 hours. If you have these online accounts, you can easily take a look at it and you'll know when it's updated. But that is a very, very powerful way to quickly increase your credit score if you need it and if you can bring the balances down. Guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. I will catch you in the next video. We're going to be uploading more and more. If you have any questions about anything related to credit, more credit card videos are coming. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.